enthusiasts. My name is Abby Oliveira and I am a performance poet / spoken word artist. Welcome to this very short introduction to performance poetry video course brought to you by me and by the Bluebell Arts project run out of the gas yard. Had we been able to physically meet come this stage in the performance and poetry course, we would have looked quite extensively at people's physicality and people's habits, particularly when they feel on the spot, when put on a stage in front of an audience. I'd have made people stand up in front of an audience quite a few times at this point, even to do random things like not just stand there. No, I literally mean just come into the performance space, turn to face us, and just stand there. That's all I want you to do. We all have physical habits that we take refuge in when we feel under the spotlight. Some habits, luckily enough, are controllable by tips and performance techniques. And then there are other habits, well, you can't even really call them habits, but if you, for instance, tremble and shake a lot when you get up in front of an audience like I do, if you're prone to adrenaline rushes, in cases where we can't disguise those things, then the best thing to do is do the opposite. Don't try to disguise them. Mention them. Make a thing of them. Maybe even crack a wee joke about them, and you'll find that this will instantly put your audience at ease, because remember, they are looking to you to be the conductor. One of my comfort habits when I get up in front of people, havering a lot. I can feel my brain scrambling to keep up and even sometimes roaring at me, Abby, what are you talking about? And still I just keep yep. For others, their habits might be more physical, like they bounce around the stage like the white rabbit with nervous energy flying all over the place, and others go inwards. We all have them. Mostly, they're not a huge big deal and we shouldn't get fixated on them. But sometimes they can really affect your performance. So here are 5 performance tips and techniques to help you with your performances and readings. Tip number 1. Breathe. Now this may seem obvious, but the fact is that most of us do not consciously breathe. And we underestimate the importance of breath in every arena of our lives. It's something we barely notice, of course, until our breath is restricted in some way. Get into the ritual of taking 5 to 10 minutes before any gig or reading to reconnect with your core. That is the breath and the heartbeat. Now, there are so many breathing exercises that you can find online on YouTube that are designed to calm and ground you. A habit of regular and conscious deep breathing will help with any nerves or anxiety that you might feel, as will a wee whiskey. But that's a dodgy road to go down, my friends. Trust me. Now I've decided I'm not going to do no more poems. I'm going to sing Danny Boy for you all. Tip 2. Open up. When we're nervous, we naturally want to physically close the body in. We close our eyes, we cross our arms, we collapse at the diaphragm, the head goes down. When you feel like you want to do that, do the opposite. That is, standing with your feet slightly apart, with one foot just a little bit in front of the other, bringing the chest up and opening it out. Lift the head, look out in front of yourself. Not only do you look more confident when you stand like that, but this also helps with breathing, with voice projection, with shakiness. Tip number 3, be mindful of your physical stance. Even if you're reading behind a lectern or a mic stand and you're not doing that much moving, beware of the stance that you are employing. Particularly beware of the buzz. Adrenaline can cause us to be tempted to bounce round the stage like the White Rabbit. Avoid that. Pick a spot, pick a strong stance. Do not stand with your legs crossed, for example, as I've seen a lot of people do, because then it's really difficult to hold your balance. Remember that you do have a body, that you're not a talking head. So once you have planted yourself, grounded yourself, you've got that strong stance, if the rest of your body feels like moving when you're doing the poem, well, let it move, What I'm talking about is not jumping around the stage. Practice in front of a mirror while you're at home so you can get a clearer idea what you look like. If, like me, you would prefer to employ a little bit of walking about the stage while you do your piece, then employ the technique of conscious wandering through what we call in storytelling the storytelling triangle. The more you practice this, the better. It should not be obvious that you're employing the triangle technique to your audience. It should just look like you're just walking. What conscious wandering does is that it cuts down the chances of your audience trying to listen to and observe your poem and your performance like this. What was that poem about? Tip number 5. Pick strategic moments to connect with your audience physically. So either through eye contact or physical distance, you could get a little bit closer to where your audience are at physically. Even down to the little bit of chat that you give in between poems is important for making a connection with your audience. And of course, direct your energy and your performance out towards the audience, into the room. Imagine your essence filling up the entire room. And for the rest of the time, when you're not making eye contact with the audience, then you perform just above their heads, which make you feel more comfortable and them feel more comfortable. And finally, tip number 6 is mic technique. Now, the chances are there will be a microphone. So getting to grips with some basic mic technique is your pal. Now, I saw a priest in Craigan Chapel once who had, I must say, some pretty on point mic technique. In fact, his mic technique was so good that I didn't even realise how good his mic technique was until he slipped up and popped the mic once. Oh, very good there, Father. Very good. And if a priest can do it, well, we had all better learn how to do it. So tip A for perfecting decent mic technique is to keep the mic typically about maybe 6 inches away from your mouth. Tip B for good mic technique is to point the mic towards your mouth, either from slightly below your mouth or slightly above your mouth. You'll see a lot of singers singing like this. And the reason that they do that is because it cuts down the possibility of you popping the mic. That's when those when you make those P's and B sounds directly into the mic and hear the p. And poets love to pop a mic. It's something you can't avoid. It's not really a massive big deal. The audience aren't going to remember it. You're going to be forgiven for it, but it's worthwhile getting into the habit. Point C in good mic technique is to take the time to position the mic in a way that suits you. Become familiar with how to readjust a mic stand. Now, you might be reading, so think about where is the optimal place for the mic to be placed, as well as your page. Even when you are reading, keep your mouth pointed towards the mic. Because as we all know, every time you turn your head away from the mic, we lose volume. And point D of good mic technique. If there are louder bits and softer bits in your poem, then get used to moving the mic away instinctively when you move into those louder parts. You see singers doing it all the time with that hey, when they hit them high notes. It should get to the point at which it looks so natural to you that it's not obvious that you're using a technique per se. Again, it just stops you popping the mic, it stops you damaging the mic. If you can get access to an amp and a microphone, then practice your poems into a mic as often as you possibly can. Even if it's a karaoke machine and a microphone, brilliant. Practice the techniques until they become like second nature to you. If you can't get access to an amp and a mic and you're currently at home, unable to leave the house, then do you know what? Grab a hairbrush. At least practice the movements for just now and get into the habit so that when you do get access to a mic, hopefully when you join me after COVID in the gas yard, that you'll be all ready to go and those movements will be second nature to you. And time for the final task. Now that you've memorised your poem after last week, it is time to stand it up and practice performing it physically. So stage 1, mark yourself out a makeshift performance space. You can do it using old coats like you used to do when you were in goals as a kid. Use the techniques and tips outlined in this video to practice performing your poem physically. Use a mirror or a camera to film yourself while you do this. Review the footage. And when you are happiest with your physical performance and you feel you've got it down just about as well as you can get it down, then we invite you to film yourself on your phone and send us the footage at bluebellartsproject@hotmail.com for possible inclusion on the Bluebell Arts Project's Facebook page and other online platforms. And with that, I will leave you with our final pick of the poets. A poet who needs no introduction, an absolute master of the performance form, Raven.
I found my orphan voice one day. I was living in the ruins of a house collapsed years ago beneath the weight of what was unspoken. I sculpted diction like Pulp Fiction, gifting it the colloquial violence of a gun. I lifted glib scriptures from a street preacher's passions to fashion misspelled gospels from its own fears, while the illegible heart left the tracks of its tears untranslated. But the word got out. No manifesto, but the breath, till even that goes. See, I misread the writing on the walls. It said, a death without joy is a night without stars. And when at last I comprehended, I penned this on remnants of night, between pinpoints of light. I misunderstood. People ain't killed for what they say, but for its echoes. The roar of distant suns is unheard, yet years after their deaths are we aware of their presence when it is darkest. No manifesto but the breath, till even that goes. We have all misspoken. Testimonies consigned to air are yet tethered to earthly prejudice. Word balloons are too leaden to fly and make cartoons of speechless reverence. We have all misspoken. And for it, our ends will be identical when the bottom drops out. All swinging our days away on the rope of this life. Our inexhaustible diatribes, our inexpressible disbelief, choked between lip and lungs and lost forever. No manifesto but the breath, till even that goes. All but tongues. I said, tongues will cleave to language as fire to that which fuels it until all meaning is burned out and nothing more can be said. History cannot be until we are left standing in the ash of voices fallen from a feverish nation with its tongue inflamed. The ash of voices spiraling down in ever slower revolutions. Today, when we have waited in their remains long enough to recognize the virtuosity of their silence. To a day when every song martyred by mouth goes unsung at once. The harmonics of sympathetic strings and crossed wires fading at last to leave empty the contemplative air in room enough to simply breathe.